Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
I'm Faye.
And I'm James. So how has your week been, Faye?
Well, do you know what? The sunshine came out last week, so it just makes me such a happy person. So sunshine, first person I met on Monday last week was the ray of sunshine, Chris Watson from Venue AV. So he's one of these people, he runs loads and loads of events. So he's always, and his team's always behind the scenes in operations. And it was just, sometimes it's just really nice to catch up with people that you don't usually get chance to. So he was my first ray of sunshine. Everyone can be ray of sunshines last week. And let's hope it carries on this week as well. Who else? So a couple of other people I caught up with and had great conversations with. So David Cleveley, always great to catch up with David. And I also had a very big discussion about everything with Tony Quested. So the political landscape, the tech landscape, what we do to promote ourselves in Cambridge, and some proper work stuff. So it was a proper deep conversation there. And one of my colleagues joined, and I think he was quite blown away with the intensity and the level of that conversation. But it was still a good conversation. There was one bit, and I'm sitting there going, you know, I'm forever an optimist here. And can I just try and put an optimistic slant on what's going on in the world? And they both kind of looked at me like, no, that's going way too far.
So you haven't solved the world's problems then?
No, I was intending to do that this week. I was really just raising it last week. So this week I'm going for proper solve the issues.
Good.
So yeah, that was that. Did lots of work with the Cambridge Tech Week team. So there's some cool stuff going on there. I got a piece of work over the line. So it's some pitch work we've been doing with a US client that has literally taken forever for a variety of reasons. So just the sheer relief, you know, when you get something over the line, there seems to always be lots of things happening at the same time, but the joy of that's great. And I had no evening gigs at all last week. So my social butterfly behaviour was all aimed at home. So I did loads of cooking. We actually ate some really nice meals last week. So I'm sure everyone wants to know that.
Everyone wants to know the domestic bliss at home. It's lovely, isn't it?
And I do remember that you sent me messages that weren't supposed to be to me. So those
yes,
lines are getting very complicated now. Anyway, how was your week?
Luckily, it wasn't too embarrassing. No, I've had a great week too. Maybe it was the sunshine. It was a really good week. I've been planning too on Tech Week. So hope to share more on that as soon as we can. I went over to Mantle HQ, which is near Stansted Airport, to catch up with the team and kick around some new ideas for a marketing campaign. We got back our member survey, so we're looking through the feedback and thinking about how we can implement some of the great suggestions we had there. We also did a scrub up on the Trinity Bradfield Prize, so just looking back over the previous year and what can we do better, how can we improve it this coming year. And talking in the Trinity Bradfield Prize, Lorna from Demetria popped in, which was lovely. So caught up with her. And last but not least, we hosted a visit from HKU Technology Hub over in Hong Kong, who were in town to learn all about Cambridge's innovation ecosystem. So yeah, another busy week.
Great.
Should we go on and talk about the news? Yeah,
I think there's quite a few updates again this week. So we have a new entrant into Cambridge. Swedish legal technology pioneer Lightbringer has set up its office here after raising 4.2 million euros to revolutionise patent protection with AI. The company currently has 30 people on its team, with 2 of them now focusing full-time on the UK market, and they hope to grow to 5 to 10 people in the UK within the next 12 months.
They're actually with us here at the Bradfield Centre, and so Lee's doing a great job of integrating them into the Cambridge ecosystem quickly. On that note, they actually hosted their first event last week, which was looking at AI and IP, and they did that alongside Innovate UK and Cambridge Network. So they're off to a flying start. So well done, Lee. I'll ask him to come on and share more about the company. Cambridge Wide Open Week went into the press this week too. The event is extending from one day to a whole week, which will run from June the 9th to the 13th, offering an immersive experience to global investors, CEOs, employees, sci-tech enthusiasts, policymakers, and academics in the life sciences, biotech and tech bio ecosystem.
Yeah, and we're going to be speaking to Prashant Shah, who's creator of the event, in an episode that'll air at the end of this month. Next up, we have Raspberry Pi, who released more products in the second half of last year than in any full 12 months previously, as reported by CEO Eben Upton. And that was really the standout feature of the company's 2024 full year results. Revenue was slightly down to $259.5 million, but that didn't overshadow the fact that there was this massively increased output of innovation. So as I've just said, they delivered on all 22 product launches that they'd planned for, and they ended the year in which they also did a very successful IPO with $45.8 million cash, up 9% year on year.
Cambridge-based online fraud buster Featurespace has unveiled a new CEO to replace Martina King, who's retiring following the acquisition by Visa. Jason Blackhurst will take on the role of Senior Vice President and Head of Featurespace and Acceptance Risk Solutions at Visa.
I seem to be doing all the numbers today. Another huge funding round number for you again this week. CMR Surgical in Cambridge has closed a funding round of more than $200 million to underpin worldwide expansion, notably in the US, to accelerate commercial expansion of the Versius surgical robotic system to more hospitals. So that will give us even more to talk to Mark Slack about when he joins us in the summer.
Fabulous. Right, so on to today's episode. Now, any vibrant tech community needs grassroots meetup groups, which are the lifeblood for knowledge exchange, networking, and job opportunities. So in this episode, we meet two organisers that are active here in Cambridge, Natalie Gray, who organises the Cambridge Software Crafters Meetup, and Ilker Akansel, who's the community strategist and ex-Google. And we get into the weeds of why they do what they do and how they do it. So I'm really excited about today's episode, which is talking all about community. We've got two guests this week, so why don't we start with some introductions? Natalie, do you want to kick things off for us?
Sure, thanks for having me, James. So I'm Natalie Gray. I'm Head of Marketing and Partnerships here at Codurance. We're a global software consultancy founded on software craftsmanship principles. I have a background in sort of tech and community all the way back till the sort of 1990s, so I've seen quite a lot of change over the last couple of decades or so. I guess my career really sort of got going in community when I was with Skills Matter, which was sort of it became Europe's largest sort of tech venue in London. So I was there sort of helping to support a community of several thousand software engineers, people in tech, learning to improve their skills and grow their careers. And really lots of new tech was sort of born at that place. So yeah, community is very close to my heart. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Lovely. And Ilker?
Fantastic. Hello, my name is Ilker Akansel. I'm a community strategy consultant from the world of community building, so to speak, and it is an industry in its own right. And I've been doing that since 2020 under my own name. Before that, I led the developer communities for Google. But just going, further up in the history, it actually started in London 2012 when I was leading a group of volunteers for the London Olympic Games. So it just, rolled onto a fact that community building, I just discovered it as an industry of its own right. And now I'm supporting organizations around the world from my company based in London, but I myself am based in Cambridge. Now focusing in things like entrepreneurship ecosystem building through communities, building talent communities, but of course technical communities are always in my heart, as James knows very well.
That's great. Thank you both of you for your introductions and welcome from me to the podcast as well. So in true Simon Sinek style, let's start with the why, shall we? Why do you believe that meeting groups and grassroots technical communities are important to building and sustaining a vibrant tech ecosystem? So Ilker, let's go to you first with that one.
It's great that it just this question just followed the introduction because it is so close to my heart and it is something that I'm focused on. Just looking at what an ecosystem is a collection of interdependent parts, so to speak, and that's why we call the environment as such. The word community, when we hear it first, it could actually mean a lot of things to a lot of people. It could mean a neighborhood, a society. Sometimes it's even a building. But in the broadest sense of the word, community is a group of people who are connected with each other with a sense of community, with a sense other than themselves, so to speak, or what they do, and of course with a sense of care. It's extremely important in my view that technical communities or meetings of technical communities are quite important for the entrepreneurial ecosystems because, they focus and they provide lots of support to all these moving parts, all these capitals, so to speak, inside these ecosystems. In the old times, the technical communities, perhaps they weren't so much relevant. But when we think about, the fact that every organization, as per the prophecies of the 2010s, every organization has become a technical outfit, has become a software organization of its own right. Without these technical communities, there's no technical knowledge, technical prowess being actually shared across the ecosystem. And that's why, just having these meetings is extremely important. And finally, there's the concept of serendipity, which is central to the to community, which is what we see in small place relatively like Cambridge today. Now, there's a lot of opportunities to meet, wonderful people doing very relevant things to what you do today. The biggest example, not perhaps from the Cambridge world, but from the world of history, is when Steve Jobs actually met Steve Wozniak in 1976, I think, at a community called Homebrew Computing Club. And that's where they were showing all these sort of home-built computers. And that was where the prototype for Apple was, and the rest is history. So judging from that, perhaps there's every opportunity for the same magnitude of encounters to happen in technical communities of Cambridge or wherever you're listening this from.
Yeah, Natalie, you gave some examples in your introduction there. What's your experience on the importance of these groups?
The importance of kind of grassroots sort of tech communities probably can't really even be overstated. So, right from kind of being a sort of junior engineer, somebody that's starting out in their career, these kind of groups are a place, like a safe space where you can kind of practice, make mistakes, learn your craft, make new friends, hopefully make some good connections to help your career. So right at the very beginning of careers, it really helps in that sense. But then, as you're progressing, you can learn, like we run sort of lightning talk sessions. So as you're kind of progressing, then it's a great place to sort of learn how to speak in public. And that might not necessarily mean giving talks, but it might be, but also just how you communicate with your peers in a working environment. So that's really, it's a great place to practice that kind of thing. And then all the way up to more experienced people. So we run communities for CTOs, and wherever people are in their careers, they still want to learn new things. They still need us kind of, as I mentioned, a safe environment to, get new ideas, meet new people. And these communities are absolutely invaluable. And then to Ilker's point about sort of new technology being discovered, I could, there were myriad new ideas and new sort of technologies born out of the communities that, as I say, that we run at Skills Matter, and no doubt that's happening, week on week. People, particularly, startups and entrepreneurs coming up with new ideas, and technology kind of, new technology ideas they really do come out of those kinds of grassroots sort of low-key conversations that just happen outside of that kind of working day, really. So I think you can't really kind of overstate the importance of them.
No, that's great. And I totally agree. I think every vibrant tech cluster needs that sense of bringing people together, that peer-to-peer learning, the knowledge sharing, the connectivity, both on a professional and social level as well, right? Let's not overstate how important, the whole building social networks is, as well as the kind of professional networks is a big piece of it as well. Okay, so in your introduction, you both, demonstrated your impressive experience in working in community, but I wanted to maybe go back a little bit further. What was the original kind of inspiration or spark? Have you just always had that sense of kind of building things and bringing people together? What was the trigger point for you? Ilker, why don't we start with you on that one?
A bit of a going conversation within the community professionals, so to speak. Almost each and every one of us has actually found ourselves in this industry by accident. Perhaps it's not an accident; it's a bit of a deliberate move. It all started, unsurprisingly, just like many community builders, community professionals, or people doing community on the side of what the professionals do. It all started in school, in university, where I was, leading a couple of clubs, a couple of communities around things like information technology. I did a degree in management information systems. Because of my sort of dinosaur age, we're talking about something like between the time between 1996 and 2000, when Google was founded in 1998. So it's how, back in time that was. There weren't many sort of societies or communities that these conversations were actually had. So it was great to lead and just bring people together. And just fast forward, many, many years, just looking back, the actual professional start, as I briefly said in my introduction, was the London 2012 Olympic Games, where, accidentally I discovered this opportunity to be part of the organizing committee and then lead a group of volunteers. And that's where it actually struck me. I remember I was up in Manchester and I was just leading a group of volunteers in this co-host city where football games were held. And it was so striking that people from four corners of the world, they just flew in and then they just crashed at some friend's, couch just to be able to be part of that experience. Of course, without, getting paid. They were just, volunteering. And I just thought it's just wonderful if you can actually motivate people to do something like this, and where money is not the main motivator. That actually prompted me to dig deeper, and just one thing led to another. I ended up working for Google, just leading their developer communities in Turkey, Central Asia, and Caucasus. And then in 2020, at the height of pandemic, when all these online communities and online energy around, let's say, keeping together at this time of peril, took off. That's where I decided to start my own consultancy. And now community is actually evolving into many different things. It's around, ecosystems and talent and technology. I think that the hunch at the time was right, but it's just not me. I think everyone can be, can take a piece of the success and the power of communities on that one.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Natalie, what was your kind of inspiration? What was your trigger?
I've always just really enjoyed sort of being around people. And I think I started, my career has always been sort of in industries, although it's in tech, it's always been related to kind of empowering people to sort of be better at what they do. So I actually started off at a sort of IT training company many, many years ago. And that was really kind of helping people really get the best out of tech to help them kind of pursue their careers and, be better wherever they might be landing. And then I think it probably really took off, as I mentioned before, when I joined Skills Matter, which it was a very exciting place to be. I know, James, you were kind of in that sort of Shoreditch, sort of the London sort of bubble of, innovation back in the sort of early 2000s. And yeah, it's just a really inspiring kind of place to be, really. I think we hosted, it was crazy. I think into probably like 700-800 events every year. We had an event space for up to about 400 people. So many, 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 many hundreds or thousands of people used to come down, and the space was for free. And, to be part of that experience was just really exciting. And to sort of, if I could play my small part in sort of bringing some people together and giving them the opportunity to be together, make connections, drive innovation and help people's careers, then, it's a very rewarding kind of place to be. And it's the same today, really. There's one of our co-organisers of our Software Crafters Cambridge meetup. He came along as an attendee, and he's now one of our co-organisers. He won an award at work for being a kind of rising star in sort of tech leadership. And we've seen that many times across all of the different communities that we run in. We're now in London, Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle and Cambridge. There's many, many people that have kind of thanked us to help them, finding new career opportunities. So it started quite a few years ago, but it still really hasn't changed in terms of the motivation.
That wasn't actually a specific question that we were going to talk about today, actually, but I really want to come back on that point about career development and recruitment, because I think it's probably underappreciated just how important the skill set you develop is as a community organizer and just volunteering to get involved in things. I remember back when I was working at Twilio, when we were hiring DevRel people or community people or actually anyone, we virtually never advertised those roles. We just went into the technical communities and tried to build relationships with the organizers because we knew they understood what we were trying to do. They were community first. So I think that's such an important point.
Communities will die if people don't invest their time and love into them. It's as simple as that. And you're right, the people that are giving up their time in their evenings, usually, to go and either organise or to learn things, they tend to be the people that are great potential future employees because they're clearly, passionate and want to do things well and want to kind of, push the envelope. So, yeah, absolutely. It is a great place to find talent.
It's actually quite cool that we're actually talking about this, because one thing that I didn't say in my introduction is that I'm actually a co-founder of the world's first, so to speak, talent community consultancy, an organization called Talent Led. The reason why I wanted to, talk about this is because we actually are, try to underline what you've just said. There's something quite interesting right now, beside, of course, communities and everything, that, the world of recruitment or the process of recruitment is changing beyond recognition, especially with, things like AI just coming into play. I was just reading some posts the other day on social media around now recruiters struggling to recruit technical talent because people are using all sorts of intermediaries and all sorts of platforms to, let's say, to go through the process without actually attending. So they're using all sorts of AI avatars and, just AI assistants to assist them with the interview process. So people are now struggling to find out whether it's the person before them is actually real. So we're really running into a bit of a Blade Runner situation right now where, in front of you, you don't know if the candidate or the person, the programmer is actually real or not. We found out and we argue that perhaps communities or, just communities of, let's say, candidates, employees or alumni of an organization is the most humane, the right and the just way forward in terms of, keeping and maintaining a relationship with an organization as a technical professional. So I thought that it actually tied up quite well with what you just said, James and Natalie.
Yeah, I mean, what's coming across really strongly is it's about putting the community of people together, and it's about motivation. So having motivated leaders, providing the right kind of content. So what I'd like to do now is just delve a little bit deeper into the communities that you both run. So Natalie, I'll come to you first of all. And the bit I really enjoyed from your introduction was how multi-generational it is as well. So do you want to just tell us a little bit more about the objectives of your community, how often you meet, all of those kinds of things?
Yeah, sure. Specifically around Software Crafters Cambridge. As I mentioned in my introduction, I work for a software consultancy called Codurance. We run software crafters communities in different cities, and we were actually approached by a couple of people who used to be involved in Software Crafters Cambridge pre-COVID, and they came to us and said, we'd love to get the community started again. It's kind of gone on a bit of a hiatus during COVID. During COVID was a hard time to be running communities. Like, we tried to do it online. It's very difficult to kind of recreate that sort of feeling of love and care and passion, teaching people sort of test-driven development skills and quite kind of complex sort of software coding skills just through online. Like, it's possible, but it wasn't the same as, meeting in person. So we knew that there was a great tech community in Cambridge. So a few of us who live not too far from Cambridge just thought, we're happy to, to take on that challenge. So myself and a few others kind of got together and restarted the Software Crafters Cambridge community. So we're now at just over 1,000 members. We meet every month at the Bradfield Centre. So massive shout out to James and the team at the Bradfield Centre, who host us every month. It's an amazing space, and we're really grateful to have the use of that place. It's a wonderful venue, it really is. So it's basically really aimed at anybody who is interested or wants to progress their career in software engineering and cares about things like quality and building a community of professionals, and wanting to build software that's easy to change, and something that will be kind of aligned to the business objectives. So we teach all sorts of things like test-driven development, extreme programming. We do kind of coding katas. We do stuff around architecture. We have lightning talks. We have unconferences, roundtable discussions. So it's quite a variety. So it keeps it sort of fresh and interesting for the attendees. We're always asking for their feedback. So if people want us to run something, then that's great. Like, let them ask us, what they're interested in. And if people want to run something, that's also amazing. So we give people the chance to kind of run something if that's their interest as well. And it is really from anybody that's very junior and just kind of starting out in the industry, all the way up to very senior people who are coming back and want to give back to the community. We've got people, we've actually got a father and son that come. So the son's kind of, maybe sort of a mid-level engineer. His dad is a sort of veteran in the industry. And it's great because we get all that experience that's coming back teaching, the more junior folks in the events. So it's once per month. It's sponsored by Codurance, the company I work for. It's sort of part of a collection of other craftsmanship communities around the country that we also support. So, because I have access to, many other craftsmanship communities around the country, we also sort of share ideas with each other, what might work. Here's a, new kata that you could try out. We sometimes get guest speakers. At the crux of it, it's really for anybody that's interested in progressing their skills in well-crafted software, which is a broad church, but software engineering is broad. So there's being a software engineer is changing. I think it's very consultative. There's a lot of business skills that you need these days, presentation skills, as I mentioned before, consultative skills. Like, it is becoming, I think, more complex. And then there's obviously the additional layer of AI, which is obviously something that Ilker, I know that you've already kind of mentioned, and that's completely disrupting a lot of things in software engineering. So we've almost got too many ideas. I think we've already probably got a plan for the rest of the year already. So so if anybody wants to come along, with obviously everyone's welcome. It's very inclusive.
That's brilliant. Thanks for the overview, Natalie. And Ilker, the thing you said earlier on is that I'd never actually considered, and there's no reason why I would have done either way, is it's an industry in its own right, which I is quite interesting, and it shows the importance of community. And I believe there was even a community day, a community manager day recently too. But specifically to you, Ilker, you have started a community for community leaders in Cambridge. So tell us a little bit more about that.
The communities for community professionals, I know it sounds like, breaking the internet, you're writing Google into Google Docs. It existed for a good number of years, and of course, one of the good things that we do as community professionals is to huddle together as a community to help each other. So there's a number of reasons why this is actually happening. Is because, of course, we just want to put substance and legitimacy and an awareness, so to speak, on being a community professional. So people at first sometimes they struggle to understand what does a community builder do? Is it something to do that is physically? Is it a virtual thing, or whichever way? And of course, the concept of community building didn't exist as a separate function until quite recently. It lived under things like marketing, customer success, and so forth. Only recently, and especially with the advent of the online world, so to speak, it has become a thing in its own right. So now organizations are understanding and seeing community building as a separate discipline. And That's the reason why communities have been central. Think of it like the technical communities in the early 2000s, where, we were trying to, make people understand that, perhaps sort of coding or technical communities were here to stay, and they're an integral and important part of, business life, so to speak. These communities have been around, and, the quickest and easiest way, of course, is to set one up in a city. There are a number of branded community programs that are, now city-based. So I started one back in Istanbul, where I'm a native of, back in 2020. I started a community called CMX Connect Istanbul. So CMX is the world's biggest community of community professionals. And when I moved from Istanbul to Cambridge last year, I looked for an opportunity to do something similar. And since CMX was already quite, present and prevalent in the UK, I decided to support a different program, a different platform that is actually quite UK centric. It's actually quite local to here. A good friend from Norwich actually started another platform called Led by Community. They were looking for chapters to come up in different places around the world, not just the UK. So I've started the one in Cambridge. Of course, the reason being is that this is a very, very big ecosystem and a very small place where the degrees of separations are not that big. And I always thought that a better understanding of community building and community management, so to speak, would be extremely beneficial for the community here and the businesses here, especially the deep tech scene, the life sciences. Those are the places where community building hasn't yet disrupted massively and could do really, really wonderful things. So now we have this community. Just like Natalie, I would like to extend my thanks to James for allowing us to use Bradfield for our gatherings. So we've done our first event at the Community Managers Appreciation Day, which is the end of January. I think it's the third Monday of January every year, which is a yearly day where we just appreciate community professionals around the world. So we coincided our event with that one. That was our launch this year. And we aim to meet regularly to raise awareness of community building in Cambridge, not just in Cambridge, let's say east of England or beyond, anywhere where the Cambridge-based businesses actually have some impact. So that's one thing that we want to do. And finally, like Natalie was actually talking a little bit more about it, there are a number of industries that could really, really benefit from bigger communities also of talent, so to speak, or technical talent, so to speak. So our community, led by Community Cambridge, is also acting as a point of awareness for people to understand, to see these communities of technical talent, so to speak, not just in one dimension, but in many dimensions. Think of it like quantum computing, not just the engineers or physicists, but also people from other divisions, other technical and non-technical backgrounds that could actually benefit the effort in Cambridge by itself.
If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. We also offer a range of high-quality meeting spaces for hire, and for tech event organisers, our auditorium, lakeside pavilion and atrium spaces are perfect to bring your communities together for in-person and hybrid events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.
This might be a bit of a long question, but bear with me. Obviously, there's lots of different communities, right? There's no one size fits all when it comes to community groups. Some are broad in terms of the subjects that they address. Some are super specific, maybe around one programming language, for example, or something like that. Others, which I think is an important differentiation, are endorsed by the vendors themselves. Others are 100% independent. Everything's different, right? But I think here we've got a nice mix of different experiences. So Ilker, maybe we start with you, because obviously you've worked for Google and you were responsible for building Google's technical communities over in Turkey in the region. What was that like? How much freedom did you have as an employee of Google? Did you feel like you were constrained by, processes of Google, or, did you feel like you were selling, or was it completely open and collaborative in the kind of way that we've been describing community to this point in the conversation?
It's a great and an interesting question. So first of all, we were back in the day, we're talking about between 2018 and 2020. That's what my experience was. I came into a program that was pretty established. So it started in 2009, incidentally, in my hometown of Istanbul and Prague at the same time. There's a bit of a debate where first, but it's been a program that's been started, and it's been going around for a few years then. And we're talking about something like 150 countries, over 1 million members, if I remember right, back at the time. And of course, it will have increased by then. So there were a number of members of this, they would call it the developer relations team. Not exactly developer relations, but it was more like a mixture of developer community and developer relations at the same time. So the processes were all, let's say, quite ingrained. They were quite set. And the programs were set as well. So what would happen is just like the branded programs I was just talking about a few moments ago. So Google had its own branded community programs, which actually developed from the grassroots Google Technology User Group, GTUGs, into what they would call GDG, Google Developer Groups, and then, some more few specialized groups that actually spawned from that one, like Women Tech Makers, like Google, developer student clubs, and so forth. What Google was doing is that they had these branded sort of packaged engagement methodologies and events that they would offer, recommend these groups that were actually still kept quite independent, even though, Google's brand is quite prevalent, is quite constrained on what we can do. So Google did a lot of things cleverly. Of course, that's at the back of, many, many years of experience, so that by the time I arrived, they knew how to treat communities or how to keep the right distance between the communities and themselves as a big organization, so that they're not overpowering in terms of the branding and in terms of the direction of the events and so forth. I would say definitely it was a well managed balance, but that's again, it's just a peculiarity of this particular established program. Of course, there are certain things that you can do in a big organization, and there are certain things that you can do if you're leading a community, or if you're a smaller organization where a lot of the things you have the opportunity to set. That's what I can say generally, but I think time is a great thing to have when you're looking at communities, and there was a good feedback loop between the communities themselves, the members themselves, and the organization, so that these programs were honed and honed and honed. And of course, one success was we were there because we just had to do it on the hoof. So that happened. The worst thing happened, and then in 2020, the Google programs, which were in-person programs, had to go all virtual when the pandemic arrived. So that was a big transition, an important transition to have. And I think that the community world has changed considerably and permanently after that. So that transition was well managed, because there were a lot of people just putting a lot of thought, but also because the community members were kept in loop. They were well consulted, so to speak, as to how to handle the transition and then the journey going forward. That's what I can say. But again, I reserve the comment where, if you're starting a community from scratch today, you have a lot of opportunity, a lot of liberty, a lot of intentionality, and a lot of strategy that you can actually inject, especially now that a lot of things are changing by the minute, like AI, like new ways of working, and, the general economic and the outlook of the world. So there's a lot of adaptability that you can actually install that may not necessarily exist in a bigger organization community.
Okay, thanks for that. I just wanted to follow up with one supplementary there, and then I'll bring you back in, Natalie. When you think about learnings and, communities and industry, one thing that I think that's always struck me has been you tend to see the US tech firms investing in large showcase conferences like Google I/O, for example, AWS reInvent, Dreamforce. These are huge gatherings of global community, very expensive, especially in a post-pandemic world. What's your view on the importance of, and I'm sure Natalie, you've got opinion on this too, so I'll bring you both in on this. What's your view on the importance of these big showcase events that try to bring people from all over the world into one place versus the importance of investing like locally in more regional activity?
I was actually fortunate enough to attend to 2019 I/O before, just things, happened around the world. And we were able to bring in many members from our community to that one, because that's what Google did. So for those who are listening, I/O is a sellout. It was a sellout conference every year for developers where, there was so much demand that you had to go through a ballot to get a ticket, even if you'd paid the sky high price. But the most active and the most contributing community members were given free and special access by Google, which was something that was great. So this actually is part of my answer. So co-location and these kinds of events and these kinds of, the money cannot buy experiences or experiences of getting together is all part and parcel of professional life, human life, technical professionals' journey, so to speak, I would say. So definitely they have their place. And I personally think that those kinds of big events are great events to, create a lot of interesting synergy, a lot of conversations around people. It's not just the sessions or the conversations. There's even organizations, or there's even methodologies of bringing people together, like on conferences today, where you don't have a set agenda. You just asking people who come in to put their agenda together. So therefore, in-person experiences, they may have shifted, they may have changed, they may have become hybrid, but I think that they will always have their own place. And in my opinion, they should continue, not without though consulting the people who have actually taken part.
Natalie, let's bring you back into the conversation.
I've worked with AWS quite a bit over the years. We actually at Skills Matter, I think we hosted the first ever AWS Summit at our CodeNode venue, and I think it was about 100 people or so. And now I think this year they're expecting 24,000. So it's grown quite a bit. But I think there's always a place for the big expos. They have their big announcements, all the journalists go. It's like the showcase for that. That's kind of, as you say, like the reInvent is, the pinnacle of kind of, showing off what, has happened last year and what's going to be coming. It's a great place for customers, for partners, etc. But, then kind of one level down, obviously again, if it was AWS, for example, they have their sort of regional summits. We had sponsored those a few times. And again, regional announcements, it's a great way to, meet many, many hundreds or thousands of people from the community. And then obviously the meetups. I know AWS are very supportive of the meetups around the UK. I was involved with the AWS UK meetup that met in London regularly for a few years, and these meetups are run completely independently of AWS, although AWS will provide speakers and they're very supportive. They have their head of sort of DevRel is a guy called Mateus Guimares, who many people would follow and know of. He's an amazing supporter of the company, and they are very supportive, but they are very much run independently of AWS. Obviously, AWS run their own, many kind of more sort of product focused events and events with partners and things that are more perhaps for customers. But really, those kinds of grassroots communities are, I think they're kind of sort of a little bit sacred, and you have to look after them and treat them well. And I think the big vendors realise that if they get too heavily involved, it might kind of ruin the kind of the feeling that people have for them. So you do have to be a bit careful. And it's the big shows and expos at the big centres that's where these big vendors can really pull out all the stops and be a lot more kind of product focused, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing, isn't it? I think the people that really do get community it's about enablement, connectivity, peer-to-peer learning. It's not about selling and pushing your product.
So bringing it back to Cambridge a little bit and to pick your brains and get some advice. We do love a networking event in Cambridge. I think we've got more kind of community groups and events and you can shake a stick at. Even last week on the podcast, we were talking to Russell of Vipercore and he was suggesting we needed another group setting up for his specialist area. What I would like to know from you is what advice would you give to people on how to run a successful community? You know, is it about having a good remit? Is it about how you communicate, how inclusive you are? What would be your couple of pieces of advice? So Natalie, let's go to you first.
Being clear on the purpose of the group is really important. Making sure that, you know, if you're going to be starting something, that people understand, you know, what are they going to be getting if they give up their time. That's, you know, you need to kind of be able to demonstrate that you have a passion for something, and hopefully it's something that there's a few other folks might also agree with. So, but having that purpose is really important. Having a kind of a group of people that are up for kind of organising things with you. So, you know, I've got people that don't work for Codurance who are as much part of the group as I am. So we have about 5 or 6 of us that co-organise the meetups. We're all from different companies. We all have different jobs, you know, day jobs, but we all kind of chat very regularly and make sure that we're supporting each other. So having that kind of team in place that trust each other. So if one of you can't make it, the thing will still go ahead is really important. And I think just doing it regularly is probably one of the most important things that people don't realise. As soon as you know, think, oh, we're not really sure what to do this month, or that person's on holiday, oh, we'll skip it and do the next month. As soon as you start skipping, that's when sort of cracks start to show and people kind of start thinking, well, are they really that, if they're not that committed to this, like, why should I show my commitment by coming every month? So I think just being very diligent and regular about it. And then obviously, like, you know, these are communities for the community, by the community. So making sure that you're always listening to your attendees, you know, is there something you could be doing better, and always just trying to, you know, adapt to the changes in technology. Because, yeah, one thing that the only constant in tech is that everything is constantly changing. So just being kind of mindful of that and making sure that what you're doing doesn't become too staid. And then I guess just the last thing is, I think we've talked about before, don't be salesy. Like, I work for a commercial software consultancy, but I do wear my Codurance hoodie when I go along. And we do have some branding on our slides, but, you know, I literally just say a couple of words and then that's it. Like, people don't want to be sold at these events. So there's plenty of chance for doing that elsewhere. So we're just very protective of the community and make sure that we're respectful of them. People are giving up their evening to come, so you need to make sure you're giving them value.
Natalie has been amazing in mentioning what I would call, I did deliver a session some time ago on this one about community intentionality. So basically, a lot of people just put together communities and just say, okay, so let's, bring people together, and then eventually the community will start moving into a certain direction. But the thing about it is that that's why we have what we would call a community strategy, in the sense that, think of community like a bit of a river that you cannot really stop, but you can basically sort of change its course or build a dam or whatever. So to make sure that, that energy is basically turned into something, useful. In the time of the community, in the instance of the community, this is something, it's a structure that is very special because it can produce both, value for both the members and the sponsoring or supporting organizations, so to speak. It's one of the very, very few things around the world where you can have this, win-win situation, so to speak. So a couple of things on that intentionality. So have some intention, just make sure that the members know what they're getting. The supporting organizations know how they can actually work with this particular community and how they can get involved. Have a really strong culture and processes around that one. And these should be set, these should be decided on when the community actually starts and not during the course of the community. It's very difficult to course correct, because when people sort of get the sense that the community is salesy, is not useful, it doesn't produce any value, or the value is not clear, they are very clever to vote with their feet and then just, desert and leave the community. And that's what you don't want to happen. So you got that one. If you put member journey in the center of the community, a community is about journey. So a member joins at point A, they become part of the community, and the community actually helps them to become the person at point B. So if you put that in the center of it, you can't really fail. And if you can support this with the sponsor involvement, with the community events and everything else along the intention that you've set, then you've got all the hallmarks of a successful community. And eventually the organizing committee or the sponsoring organizations or the supporting, any kind of stakeholders, they eventually disappear. They just, sort of completely merge into the scenery of the community, where the member journey just, stays right in the center of it. So if you construct it like that, I'm sure that it'll have a lot of success, and it'll have a lot of a sustainable, let's say, life, so to speak. And so these are the things that I would say. And if you're working for an organization that is looking to support a community, there is one thing that we say in the industry, that you will be representing the community to the company and the company to the community. So if you can actually have that distinction between the two, and try and keep the distance between the two, which is the crux of the matter when it as a community professional, then you will be able to lead this community or have this community alongside your organization in the way that it's supposed to be.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I knew going into this that when you talk to people that spend their whole lives thinking about how they can help other people, it was going to be a positive conversation. So I think we've had a really positive conversation today. That's been great. So thank you, both of you. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to John Green, who's the organizer of the AWS user group in Cambridge. John was going to join us, but unfortunately couldn't make the recording. So John's another great example of a community leader active in Cambridge. So check out his work with the AWS user group. Just to wrap things up, how can people find more about your communities? Natalie?
Yeah, so probably the two easiest ways is to just search up Software Crafters Cambridge on meetup.com. Or you can just follow Codurance. We publish all of our events on our website and our socials. So yeah, hopefully see some new people there next time.
Well, we live under Led by Community platform. Easy enough. It is led by .community. So that's the website. And a quick announcement is that one of the biggest community management conferences or events, extravaganzas, is actually coming to the shores. Last year there was the inaugural community-led World Conference where I spoke. This year it's turning into a week. So all the chapters and everybody behind the world of Led by Community are going to be in London between July 8th and the 11th, where we're going to have a strategy hackathon. There's going to be a 2-day summit and an on-conference plus. So if you're a community professional, if you're interested in the world of community, please come and join us then. And on the other hand, for Cambridge, you can actually see the chapters page on Led by Community's website, and we aim to get together regularly. At the moment, it's every quarter, so hopefully there should be one coming up next. So free to register. You just come along to Bradfield. Thanks, James, again.
Perfect. Thanks both. It's been a great conversation.
Today's show was produced by Joe Donaghy of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.